Hi, I'm John.
And this is Andrew, and welcome to episode number 6 of Nerdborne podcast, our little spiel, our little spin-off of from J&A, where me and John just pretty completely nerd out. And
hmm
today we are finally going away from our lists that we generally do that on our Nerdborne podcast, and we're going to go actually into a deep dive into why Dark Souls was such a it's a great game. Because,
Mm.
like John has said many times, this is called Nerdborne. and and from software's name we pray, amen.
Praise the sun.
Yes, praise the sun. So we're gonna go into a deep dive in why we think that Dark Souls, the original, is so great, and this is probably gonna be a running theme because we're probably gonna do with this with probably basically every Soulsborne game.
Mm.
That's just pretty much fact. Just accept it. But John's got a little spiel he would like to talk about Dark Souls before we start diving into this. John.
Uh, I mentioned during our what was that episode 4 landmark titles in gaming that Dark Souls came out at a very special time in gaming history. Now, the original Dark Souls came out in what was it, 2011, right? Um, and at this point in time, gaming had kind of taken a everybody wins mentality. A lot of us who have been gaming for a long time really kind of bemoan that era of gaming. We went from if you are uh, old enough to have played the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, stuff like that. When it was relevant, you will know that the games were actually fairly difficult. Um, and this stems from gaming originally being basically or all the games were developed to a certain point for arcades, which were meant to rob you of your quarters back in the day.
They did
So
well, dude.
so the games were initially very difficult because hey, they needed to make money. Now, as consoles came in, that design philosophy still continued. Games were still fairly difficult right up until we get to about the PlayStation 1 era. Now, don't get me wrong, the PlayStation 1 still had plenty of hard games, but this is when gaming really started to kind of enter the mainstream more. For a long time, gaming had been relegated to just something those nerds did. Hey,
Hmm.
Nerdborne. But I digress. Um, as gaming started entering more into the mainstream, game developers gained the mentality that they didn't want to scare off any potential customers. So the design mentality went from rob kids of their quarters to everybody wins. And that's when
Mm.
we started seeing a major drop off in the difficulty of games.
Yeah.
Now, this continued for a time, and honestly, it's still kind of a little bit prevalent in game design, but not so much as it was during, the uh, early 2010s up to, I would say, probably about 2015-ish. Um,
Mhm.
but this is the era that Dark Souls landed in. And if you've never played Dark Souls, it is murderously difficult. Like, it is old school Nintendo hard. I have died more time in Dark Souls than probably any Mega Man game or all the Mega Man games combined. And those weren't exactly gentle either.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Now, this is part of what contributed not only to Dark Souls' popularity, but also what gained it a cult following. And you could argue that Demon Souls did this first, but Dark Souls is really when it took off. Um, the simple fact of the matter is that there was a niche in the market for challenging games that was not being satisfied really until Dark Souls came around, and
Mhm.
that's why it's not only a landmark title, but it's one worthy of discussion. Not only just because on its own merits it's a good game, and basically started almost a subgenre, the Soulsborne or the Souls-like. Nobody agrees on what to call it yet. um, but I really wanted to take a moment and explain part of not only uh, the reverence for Dark Souls, but kind of how it came to be. Now, that said, it has to be a good game on its own merits in order for that to happen. But I think that's why it's also such like a major critical darling, for
Right,
lack of a better term, not only because of the game itself, but when it landed.
right, right. That's a very good point. Like I never really even considered that because there was a while they were how you say that everybody won kind of game thing in
Hmm.
gaming. And like I think everybody just got used to that, and I think that it's still even it's a hangover even now. I think that's still a thing. Like there's a bunch of people that I've had try out playing Dark Souls, and they
Mm,
come back to me and like the game is just too hard. Like you just like the don't get me wrong, Dark Souls is it's hard if you've never played anything like it and you
mm,
try it out, but like it's not so hard to where you can't learn. Like you know what I mean? Like it just takes some patience. You know, just
mm,
memorize the enemy attacks and so on and so forth, and like find out your own style to it. And once you learn that you can hide behind a shield, especially like it becomes
mm,
a lot easier. Usually when people come back to me and they say that it's too hard, like I'm like, it teaches me a lot about them. Like I'm like, obviously you're not a patient person, or obviously like you can't learn.
mm.
You know what I mean? The game's not that difficult. It is difficult, but like it's not like Battletoad difficult. You know what I mean?
Well,
So.
and that's an interesting point, and I guess we'll just go ahead and say we're starting the gameplay segment of this. Um, Now, Dark Souls is difficult. There is no lying about that. Like, enemies deal a ton of damage, but you also deal, a fair amount of damage. Like the average
Yeah,
enemy can kill you in a couple of hits, but you can also kill them in a couple of hits, excluding bosses, which are meant to be, tests of player skill, not just, a flashy fucking spectacle thing. But
yeah,
something that's worth mentioning about Dark Souls is that, uh, at least the original, it might feel a little clunky until you're used to it, but the controls of Dark Souls are very tight, very communicative, and very consistent. Like,
yeah.
you're not gonna have a whole lot of "what the fuck, that hit me" moments, and after you have that first one, typically that's it. You will be able to figure out, what you need to do.
Yeah, yeah. It's very forgiving game too because it
Mm,
like it lets you pick out whatever kind of gameplay like game style. I'm sorry, but whatever, however you feel like playing it. You know what I mean? If you want
mm.
to hide behind a sword and like just throw a big clunky, I mean, hide behind a sword.
You
Hide
can do
behind a
that.
shield. Hide behind a shield and throw a big clunky sword. You could do that. Like if you want to deal with magic, you could do that. Oh, you could sit there and like do a strength build, and then you could do like it have a pyromancy on top of that because it all
Mm,
obviously the pyromancy just scales off the glove. So
right.
um yeah, it's like very forgiving and letting you take your own direction with it. And but at the same time, like if you're not used to something like that, like you just that's one thing I loved about the gameplay. They're just
Mm,
like, here's the intro to the story. Now go get them, champ. They're just they give you like subtle little hints, and unless you're like used to, and if you're a Soulsborne player, you know to look out for those subtle little hints now.
mm,
But yeah, but I didn't when I first played the game. You know what I mean? I'm like, where the hell do I go? What do I do? Basically like its own little adventure thing, trying to fucking figure it out, and then you
mm,
just get kicked in the goddamn teeth. And like how you said about the enemies, like they're really smart and how they place the enemies because like the little howls, they don't hit you hard. But
mm,
like if you're facing three or four of them and they start like doing a little slide, they can take you out very really quickly. And like,
right.
and if you're not used to the game, like I remember when you go to face the gargoyles and you go up to the stairs and
Mm,
you face it, and they got that room just filled with the hollows. And like the first time I went up into that room, dude, I just got fucking mollywopped. It's like I'm like, okay, maybe I gotta like sit back and try to take them apart, but then I get too impatient and try to like, oh, I'll take them out a few of them. I got this now. No, I didn't have it. I got killed
nope.
again. So yeah,
And
like the placement of the enemies was really smart, and it's like really subtle. Like not I want to say subtle, but it's like very tactical how they did it. You know what
mm,
I mean? It makes you learn their placement and their attack tactics and shit.
And that actually kind of harkens back to old style game design, in the sense of where the enemies are placed is very deliberate, and how they're placed in the environment is very deliberate. Like
Hmm.
they didn't just uh, speaking to level design, I guess that's it. It wasn't just okay, there has been um, we haven't had the enemy or we haven't had the player face an enemy in a while, so let's just plop something down to keep the pace going.
Hmm.
Uh, Enemy placement is very deliberate, and level design in and of itself is very deliberate. They uh, I guess kind of to sidetrack a bit and then get to back to this. Uh, the level design in Dark Souls is uh, done almost kind of ass backwards in a way. Like it seems like really what they did is they designed these different environments or these different levels, because let's face it, that's what they are basically. They
Yeah.
designed those first, and then they decided how you were going to get around it after that.
Yeah.
And like a perfect example is Anne Orlando, having to cross the buttress in order to get into a broken window, in order to get into, the painting hall, which then wraps
Yeah.
around and takes you to the spiral elevator.
More on that later.
Yeah. Excuse me. But because they did that, and they also sort of designed it almost like with practical considerations in mind, in terms of, these are places people would have gone. These are places, if they existed in the real world, this is how they would have been designed or otherwise accommodated whatever their function was, if it was a church or
Right.
a cathedral or a bastion or you fucking name it.
Hmm.
Um, and because they designed it from that direction, where they designed the environment first and then they designed how you were going to proceed through it, that gave them a lot of control about what kind of combat encounters they were going to craft. And since you mentioned the bell gargoyles, I'd like to point something out. That whole little church leading up to the bar or the bell gargoyles,
Yeah.
every encounter in there is against multiple enemies. And what they're
Yeah.
doing is they're training you to deal with multiple, either big boys or being able to uh, pick out, thin the herd before you go in. The whole section is really just trying to teach you, okay, how to deal with multiple enemies. And then you get to the bell gargoyles, which for anybody who doesn't know is it's two bosses in one. It's two of the bell gargoyle boss,
Yeah.
and that's it. They spent all that time leading up to the gargoyles teaching you how to deal with multiple opponents and multiple targets, and how to prioritize targets and stuff like that.
Right, right. They did a great job with it too. Like how you were talking about like the level design and everything like that. Like if
Mm,
anybody's ever interested, like Google the map, the entire map of Dark Souls. Like they laid it out flipping perfectly.
yeah.
Like everything, like you could literally like explain where this leads into that, and like you could literally have the entire map up and nothing overcrosses each other or anything like that. Like they did, the level designs are just fucking fantastic, and I think it's truly underrated in video games.
Mm,
And you're right though about the church that leads up to the gargoyles. Like they are, that's what they're basically doing. They are training you. Like they're trying to get you ready to you know, face multiple opponents, but at the same time, they're like training you to like, I'm sorry, I'm losing myself here.
mm,
No, they are training you to like, hey, this is going to be difficult. This is not going to be easy.
mm,
Get ready, get your ass kicked. You know what I mean? And like, have patience. Learn how to take these people apart. And like I said, they are forgiving because like you could start like I've this happened to me when I first started playing the game.
mm,
Like I realized that I was leveling up wrong. Realized I wasn't like I didn't even realize that I was losing souls at first.
mm.
Like embarrassing enough. I'm like, didn't I have like 5,000 souls? Where the hell did they go? It took me even a minute to figure out like, hey man, they're taking my shit away, the bastards. So like I would have to like restart a character, and then I had like a understanding how to scaling and everything worked, and I'm
Mm,
like, okay, let me like strategize this this a little bit better, and I would end up going with the strength build just because I like throwing big things around,
All
you
right.
know. But I learned that it helped me when I got to that church to like, because not only could I like stagger the enemies, obviously, but I could hit multiple ones in one stroke instead of like just having like a short sword or whatever, or
Hmm.
having like you know what I mean, and just hitting one and having to back off or whatever. I learned that if I could stagger them, then I could get multiple hits in, and I could back up, let my stamina bar go, rebuild back up, and go back in, and keep doing it like that. That's
Hmm.
basically how I ever did my first playthrough of Dark Souls. But they're even training you for that church before you even reach the church. Right when you after you come out of the bonfire and you go up, like
Hmm.
that you literally got one person that's throwing fucking fire bombs at you, and you know what I mean. And you got another ones that just coming in around. They try to like as soon as you go up the stairs, you got like three of them that are attacking you right there. They're warming you up little by little just to get to that area. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like to even get inside that church, you have to go up to where a bunch of hollows are in, and as soon as you go down or whatever, and then you go through the hallway, and at the end of the hallway there's that hollow that starts running. He's trying to chase you into a trap. Like
Right.
right there, right there. They're like, well, what would you call it? Like foreshadowing you for what you're about to have inside that church.
Mm.
You know what
And
I mean?
since we're on the subject of player training, I'd like to move back from where we are a little bit and talk about the Undead Asylum, or basically the tutorial level.
Uh-huh.
And uh, the Undead Asylum is simultaneously a very good and a very bad tutorial area. Excuse me. And what I mean by that is that the Undead Asylum is basically a microcosm of Dark Souls in general, the first game, in the sense that it will inform you of all the way the games is going to try and kill you. But it's a bad tutorial because it doesn't necessarily engage the player in dealing with its mechanics. It just kills them and then expects them to do it right next time.
Yeah, but I also think that's what's wonderful about
It,
it.
it
It's
is,
like
and oh, sorry.
no, you're fine. I think it's like a wonderful sense of adventure, but I guess that's just my opinion. Like, figuring the stuff
Mm,
out of Dark Souls was like truly one of my favorite things about the game.
mm,
Like I just loved figuring it out. I felt like I just love learning though. That's just me.
mm,
I've always loved the games that made you have to learn and everything like that. I've always been like that. I was even like that. One of the reasons why I was a Final Fantasy fan for so and I have been for so long was because they make you figure things out. And
mm,
and you're all right on that. It's a wonderful tutorial, like because it's like I love sometimes just launching Dark Souls just to play that Asylum. I don't
right.
know why. Yeah, I love starting a new game, a new character just to play that Asylum for some reason. I just love playing the beginning of that game. I don't know,
Mm,
maybe it's just like the nostalgia of when I originally played it. You know what I mean? And like, but they teach you right there in that asylum to look for stuff. You know what I mean in the
mm,
game. Like when that boulder comes down and you get wrecked for the first fucking time, and you go back to the area and you see now there's a giant hole in the wall. They're teaching you like, hey,
right.
watch the environment. Like the environment can change and will change. Like pay attention to the environment.
Mm. Well, I said, it's a bad tutorial because it doesn't engage the player in order to avoid those kind of things. It just kills them. But by the same token, there's for any of my fellow critics out there who will get this, there's a certain degree of ludonarrative synchronicity. And what I mean by that is that your experience playing the game is the experience that they're trying to craft, because they're trying to tell you this is a shitty world, everything sucks, and you're just going to keep dying. Okay?
All right,
Get used to fucking
or
you
quote
died.
unquote get wrecked.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Get used to seeing the words you died, because it's going to happen a lot. And
yeah,
they sacrifice the player's life in order to enforce that narrative. Okay,
yeah.
like the boulder. A better tutorial would have been, uh, like if they left a sign on the ground that says, beware of your surroundings, and then that would, make the player stop and look around, and then they see, oh, there's a giant boulder up that staircase that's probably going to come down. But no,
Yeah,
instead you walk up the staircase, they push the boulder down, and it fucking kills you.
yeah, no shit.
Uh, it's training you to, be aware of your surroundings, look for traps, stuff like that, look for hidden enemies, but it's doing that in a way that just kills you instead of, like you learn from dying, which I guess is kind of, uh the whole way Dark Souls does, but at the same time, like from a design standpoint, maybe that's not the best choice. But from a
Yeah,
ludonarrative standpoint, it's a great choice.
yeah, because there's a large following of people out there like, fuck you,
Hmm.
I'm gonna figure this shit out instead of just like throwing the controller and walking away. But I think we said it either on the podcast, or I know I've definitely said it to you talking to you. But I wonder how many people right after that first bonfire walking in and fighting that fucking demon, that beefy ass
Oh yeah.
demon. Yeah, I wonder how many people like spent hours trying to beat that motherfucker until they finally figured out, like, hey, there's a little gate over here. I think they want me to run past because I was one of those guys. I
Yeah.
got my ass kicked endlessly by that dude. I want to say at least 6 to 8 times before I figured out, like, I don't think they want me to beat him right now. Which, by the way, if you guys ever have the patience to actually beat him right, you get a demon hammer.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
Or
I'm gonna be dropping little stuff like that here and there, letting people know on little secrets to help them if they ever want to do another playthrough. And
well, I'll drop another one. If you choose black fire bombs as your starting gift, as long as you land them all as counter hits, you can actually use that to kill the demon, and that's an easy way to get the hammer.
yeah,
Whenever.
but you also don't get the master key if you do that, and I think the master key is the better gift.
Mm,
And if you want to get a bunch of stuff early on, man.
yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of, a trade-off. You can get some shit, because that's it. Or getting the demon hammer. Once you have 40 strength, that's probably the best weapon you're gonna get until like the dragon tooth or something.
Yeah, yeah. And it also goes, but like if you're doing a strength build, yeah. But also like I'm always personally a big fan of like the claymore. I know it's
Mm.
not like a pure strength weapon, but I just like blowing it around because it makes me feel like William
Mm.
Wallace. Every single time I'm throwing that bitch around, I'm like, freedom.
Freedom.
Fuck yeah. But they do like we were saying with that asylum deal, and like
Hmm.
right in the beginning, they're just like, you are gonna get fucking wrecked.
Yeah.
Just get used to it, you know what I mean? Like, but you're gonna have to keep your eyes open, because if you are getting wrecked that bad, then there must be something that you're doing wrong. So figure it out.
Hmm.
You know, I personally think the Asylum was like a great tutorial to like the rest of the game. Like, it's just like, hey man, you're gonna have a tough time. Like, I
Hmm.
remember personally, I had to look it up. I thought it was maybe me. I was like, I wonder if I'm just playing this game wrong, man. I was like, is there something that I'm just not understanding? And I look it up, and I'm like, no, everybody gets wrecked.
Yeah.
uh,
But another thing to bring up about the asylum is that or like I said, it's a good, it's a great tutorial and a bad tutorial at the same time. And really, part of that is just sort of the evolution of game design in terms of it being a bad tutorial. But take a drink. Future podcast episode, game design. Um,
it's gonna happen eventually.
Probably. I mean, let's face it, I'm really into it. But getting back on topic,
Uh,
um, it teaches you also how you're going to progress through an area in Dark Souls because, like you will, or in the case of, or for, come on, John, be a good podcaster. But okay, you go in, you either you hit the initial bonfire, you either go in and keep getting wrecked, or you escape, or you've done this enough times that you know what you're doing, so you just kill the thing. So you go
uh,
in, you take a route that takes you up and around the door that you're trying to get through, which is, the big door which leads to where the Raven is.
yeah,
So you go up and around, and you eventually you circle back to where you need to be. and you pick up the big or the big pilgrim key, which opens the main door, which leads out to the Raven. And
Yeah.
um, in terms of map design, I've at one point heard Dark Souls' map design described as a big plate of spaghetti piled on top of itself.
That's not a bad analogy.
Mhm. In the sense that all of these different areas and stuff and different like pathways and tunnels, they all crisscross and interconnect with each other, but the map is built vertically rather than like say sprawling out.
Yeah, yeah.
And they teach you that what the main way you're going to be making permanent progress through a level, because every time you die enemies come back and stuff, is by unlocking shortcuts on making it easier to move around through the map.
Yeah. They built the map like realistically. Like I don't know if anybody's ever been to like any big like museum, not museum, but like sometimes they have uh like old houses or whatever here. Like we have them in the USA. I've never been to like the big castles or anything like that, but we have
Mm,
like the big like old empty mansions down here, and like I've been to them as like a kind of like a museum part now, and
mm,
like they're built like that. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like if you go in, like it's all like across. It's like level. How you say it's like leveled up, like it had like levels on top of each other, and it's all interconnected. Like that's how big places are. Like it's
yeah.
realistic that way. I mean, and like one door could lead down to this and it's so on and so forth. Like if that was like a huge ass, if they actually built like a huge ass asylum in real life, that's how
Mm,
it would be, you know.
definitely. And
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if it was modeled off of some manner of real asylum or something.
Me neither, because it's like it looks like that.
Mm. Well,
It's got
even
that realistic feel to it.
mm, and even like other areas like the church, just to look at it, it's very much a church. Like the church in the
Yeah.
Undead Burg before leading up to the Bell Gargoyles.
Yeah.
Same thing with Sen's Fortress, or as I like to call it, Sen's Funhouse. It's uh, very obviously meant to be a fortified location first, and a pain in the ass and goddamn suffering afterwards.
Hmm. They made it that way too.
Mm,
Oh
which
yeah, dude.
I guess,
What?
or before we move on from the whole gameplay level design bit that we're doing, there is something that definitely needs commenting on. And Orlando. And
Yeah.
I I want to hear this from you, Andrew. Okay, after you go through Sen's Funhouse and you first arrive in Anne Orlando, just tell me what your initial impression was.
I thought I looked dope.
Mm.
That's my initial impression, but that faded quickly.
Mhm.
No, I thought honestly, dude, I thought it looked dope as hell. Like one of the very first things I thought when I first seen Anne Orlando was like praise the sun. Like, that was like one of the very I swear to God, that's the very first thing I thought of. Um I thought it looked dope as hell. Like I was like patient and I picked
Mm,
apart those big ass knights and I just took them one by one instead of just rushing in and getting mollywopped because I learned by then.
right.
Um, I was at all about how great it looked all the way up until I got to the bridge.
Mm,
Which I think it happens to pretty much every Dark Souls guy. Like that bridge is just fuck.
yep.
That bridge is like getting fucked by a meat grinder.
Mhm.
It's just I can't stand that fucking bridge. Even to this day, when I do playthroughs and I get to Anne Orlando, I'm like, oh great, here we go.
Yep. It's just sort of like, okay, pull up your pants a
Yeah.
little.
Yeah, big for real, man. Like, I got it down now. Don't get me wrong; it doesn't
Mm,
take me like 10 to 20 times to get inside that castle anymore and get past that bridge. But still, like, there's still times it gets me.
mhm.
Like those archers have impeccable fucking aim.
Oh
Like
God.
with like seriously, like it's unbelievable. Like their timing and their aim is just like if you stand still for 1 second, bow, you're off that bridge.
Yep.
It's like, and it's not even like a regular arrow. Like how is that? Like how is that arrow aerodynamic? It's just like a big ass giant arrow, bow right in the head.
It
Like yeah,
flies because fuck you.
yeah.
And,
That's exactly what it is.
The two archers, I actually have a nickname for them, and that's super best friends because fuck those dudes.
Yeah, for real, dude. Like I always get pleasure killing them, man. I like using the spell force. Like I
Mm,
like running up to them using this the fate spell force and
mm.
knocking them off just because they give me a little bit of revenge sometimes. Like, yes, die down
Catharsis.
there, you bitch. I love that. But yeah,
Mm,
obviously the bridge is a bitch, but
mm,
like the way they put in Orlando together, like, honestly, like once you get past the part where you die a lot, like it is like beautifully put together with the game level design. Like
mm.
how you get on top of there and it's just like how that castle's made out and everything. Like that's what actually once I get inside the castle, that's one of my favorite areas in the entire game.
Mm,
Like I don't know why. I just like it just gives me like that like an exploration kind of feel to it. Like where's
right.
this room lead? And like in that cast, I know like by the time most people get up to that point, they're like, hey, I know to be patient and like
Mm,
stuff like that. But I'm just a naturally impatient person. You know what I mean? I always have
right.
been. So like I'll be like, I see a room, and I'm like, hey, let's just run up in here, get wrecked. Like, God damn it.
Smoked.
Yeah, for real, dude. So like again, once I got to there, like I had to keep telling myself, like, hey man, be patient, like look
Mm,
inside the room and go back out, or like do a little third person view of the camera and try to like get your view and say, okay, there's just that one dude, walk up in there, get wrecked. Yeah, I thought that Anne Orlando was beautifully put together. The way it's like leveled and everything like that, and
mm.
like the way you gotta like move the big ass tower to go up, and like then you have to move the tower again, and like all that kinds of shit. And does my memory serve me? Well, they think it's got an invisible bridge there too, doesn't it?
Uh, I think, or that's only in Dark Souls 3, actually.
Okay, it is a Dark Souls 3. Okay, so sometimes they get merged together in my mind.
Mm,
But yeah, that what it is beautifully put together. Like that
mm.
all, and especially the graphics for the time were just amazing. Like
Yeah.
I run remastered now. Like I had like I just originally got a PC and like I'm originally got what the fuck am I even? Can I talk? I don't know.
English motherfucker. Can you speak it?
Oh, sometimes. Sometimes my brain. But I just got a PC and like of course I had to go out and buy remaster because we were planning on doing this podcast and I just wanted to get things like refreshed in my memory and to like play it again. Like,
Mm,
dude, it just looks beautiful. Like,
yeah.
like I can almost like I almost want to cry when I run it in 60 frames per second. Like it's just like damn. And then and it was the game was from 2011, man. Like, and it still looks amazing. So,
Mm.
um, um, what was your thoughts on Anne Orlando besides fuck the two super friends?
uh, the reason I wanted to bring up Anne Orlando specifically is because it is actually just such a radical shift from the rest of Dark Souls, and that's done
Um,
intentionally. Like everything you've done throughout Dark Souls leading up to Anne Orlando has just been death, decay, shit. It's gross. Like honestly, we should have talked about Blight Town, but frankly, fuck Blight Towns. Like anytime I do a playthrough, I always just take the back route through uh that dragon place. I don't recall what it is. I just take the back route through there so I can skip as much of Blight Town as possible.
um,
But
we're gonna talk about more about Blighttown. Dude.
yeah,
Fuck
that's gonna
Blighttown! Oh my god.
I'd like to do a little section on where the game fails, and Blighttown is going to be one of those. But getting back on topic, um, the first time you see Anne Orlando, and I think this is why it leaves such an incredible impression on people, is because it's the first pretty thing you've seen in Dark Souls. Like, and even the
Uh,
way they frame it, you come up, you get this nice, aerial view. The town is actually pristine, it's nice and white and clean and pretty. No racism, Black Lives Matter. Anyway, um but that's it. It's the first area where it looks completely unaffected from the rest of the world, and that's why it stands out so much. Now, as you go through Anne Orlando and you start uncovering its secrets, you realize that it's just as decrepit and shitty as everywhere else in the world. Um, but yeah, just that one moment of, you come up and you see the city, this wide, aerial panning shot, and then you get set down, and there's that brief moment of safety right up until you encounter the first nights where you can just kind of walk down the stairs and go, ah, and then you
Yeah.
run it, or you see the giant knights, and then they fucking mollywop you. But excuse me.
That's a that's actually a really good point that it's the first area that looks clean. Because
Hmm.
that's something I never even really noticed before until you just brought it up. But that's probably the reason why it looks so refreshing. And I thought praise the sun when I seen it.
Hmm.
As the first area that doesn't look grimy and like muddy and like swampy and like all that kinds of shit. So
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
that's the first time I noticed it.
hmm. Like,
That's-
there's a lot of different forms of beauty portrayed through Dark Souls, and of course, it leans heavily into beauty out of the grotesque. But Anne Orlando is, I guess, kind of the first traditionally pretty area.
Oh yeah, especially like,
Mm.
especially after you're dealing with like Blighttown.
Oh
Get
yeah.
Oh my god. Dude, after Blighttown and Sense Fortress, by the time you get to Anne Orlando, it's just like, oh, that looks great.
Hmm. And
So-
I think that's actually just kind of a master stroke in terms of game design in general, that they keep piling all of this nasty, grimy, dirty, disgusting shit on you, and then they give you this one beautiful, clean area that's just sort of like, oh,
yeah. Then they're like, go to the catacombs and the Tomb of the Giants.
yep. Now we're
But
putting you back in the box.
yeah, no shit. But oh, Blighttown, man, that was like one of the areas that I was just like, why?
Mm,
why? Why are you doing this to me, dude? Like, to this day, I like though I played through Blighttown. Like, I don't skip. I go through it and like I'm just a perfectionist when I play Dark Souls. Like, I have to get all the stuff.
all
I
right.
have to get all the items and shit. I'm just weird like that. I don't even that doesn't even matter if it's my fucking 10th playthrough or my 20th. Like for some reason, I just got to get all the items. I'm just like that. So I like scour Blighttown, but still to this day, like as soon as I get through like Dark Root Basin and I like about to do Blighttown, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
like here we fucking go, man. Oh man, I hate Blighttown. Like the
uh,
poison in it, like I have this like weird thing with like heights too, and like real life.
mm,
Like like there's nothing in this life that I fear besides heights. I'm like deathly afraid of heights. Anybody that even kind of knows me knows that. And for some reason, dude, like I get vertigo and shit like that. So like
mm.
you're like you got poison fucking like arrows and like poison like throwing knives that are coming at me. On top of that, like I'm high as hell. Like not the good kind of high, neither the bad kind of high.
He's
Like in
talking about height, not
it,
mentally altered.
yes. And like on top of that, like they gotta like just add a bunch of like poison throwing super fucking ninjas that are doing backflips and shit, throwing shit at fucking dipshits. And I got the ugliest damn creatures in there throwing big ass weapons at you. I don't know. I don't remember what those creatures are called, but damn, they are ugly. Like their
Ugh.
mama don't even love them ugly.
Ooh.
So, what is your opinions on Blighttown, dude? Like, what? I can't wait
Um,
to hear this.
Blighttown is suffering. It is just legitimately, we are going to try and grind the player into a fine paste. Like, it,
That's a good way to put it.
like your first time through Blighttown is a slog, and I don't mean just if you forget or if you don't get the rusted iron ring. I mean it is just a brutal grind. Everything in general is trying to kill you more than anything else has tried to kill you. There's poison everywhere. Your health is constantly being sapped. The bonfires are far apart, and just the whole verticality of it, where the main way to progress through the area is dropping down. you know Not all of those falls are soft and don't take your health. No, most of them actually damage you, so there's more sucking up your Estus flask, and it's misery.
Yeah.
And most of Dark Souls could be summed up as, things that are miserable and you're going to die a lot. But Blighttown is just sort of like they injected steroids into that fucking mentality. They are just sort of like if I had to categorize the mentality behind Dark Souls' difficulty on the whole, it would be uh, brutal but accomplishable. Like Dark Souls wants you to succeed at the end of the day. It wants you to be able to beat the game, and it does a lot to level up the player, not just in terms of the character, but you, the player yourself, to make you equal to the challenge of Dark Souls. But Blighttown is just, we are going to push you through a fucking wood chipper, and then we're going to take that wood chipper and we're going to put you through a meat grinder, and then we're going to make sausages out of your ass, and then we're going to feed them to the fucking flies.
Yeah, that's pretty good point.
All right.
And like that analogy, like how you stated, like it's
Mm,
like a big plate of spaghetti, like that's how the map is. Well, Blighttown's like if you took that big plate of spaghetti and you just started chopping it up with a knife.
yeah.
Like, hey, you got to drop down here, you got to drop down there, but you got to go back up there, then drop back down there. But hey, do you want that item? You got to drop down here, get that item, drop back down up there, and then go right back around. Like, still to this day, if sometime like I said, I don't know how many playthroughs I have of Dark Souls, probably somewhere around like the age or 15 or 20 or something like that, different characters.
Mm.
But still to this day, I'm like, damn, how the fuck do I get there again? Like, I can't, like, damn it, I have to look it up. Like, I don't even remember. Like, yeah, I probably put like so many hours in the Dark Souls, but still, like the way Blade Town's put together, like, is just. I don't want to say it's necessarily confusing, but it definitely is quote unquote challenging.
Mm.
Like they are not gentle with fucking
No.
Blighttown whatsoever. They just like raw dog the shit out of it. They really do, man. Like, and by the time you get to the bottom of fucking Blighttown and you get right in that swamp area, you know what I mean?
Mm.
By the time you get down there, you just feel. I remember feeling so safe. Like, oh my god, I got down. Thank God. Oh, don't
Finally.
have to do that shit again. Plus, that's the area where you can finally start getting some of the best pyromancy spells and shit too. So,
Yeah.
mm. I mean, that's what the pyromancy is kind of like OP in like the Dark Souls. Like, and anybody that's ever done a pyromancy run knows that they like by the time you get down there, that is the reward.
Yeah.
Blight Town is like, hey, here's some nice spells for you.
Hey, like throwing fireballs, kids? Boy, do we got you covered.
Yeah, no shit, right? Uh, but that's also one of the things about like they make you learn about,
Mm.
especially about like the equipment and shit like that, because by the time you like there is equipment that you could put on that makes that area easier. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And unless you pay attention to like poison resistance and shit like that, you're probably gonna have it. It's poison and toxic resistance. You're probably gonna have a tough time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like for an experienced player, like we still have a tough time, but we just like make them use lube now. Yeah. So just
So,
for people that don't know, that there is like there's a spider outfit and a
mm,
spider shield. Equip that on before you go into Blight Town and make it a little bit easier on you.
mm. And hit up the moss lady by Firelink Shrine. Buy, poison moss, toxic moss. It will make your life a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, if you don't feel like spending the souls, I usually do a few farming levels of in Dark Root Garden. Like you get a
Mm.
shitload of them off of those like tree
Oh
branches or
yeah.
bushes. Yeah, you get a shitload off of them. All you
Oh.
really need to do is use like a Rustido coin or something like that, and they run through it a few times, and you'll stock up quick.
Oh, hmm. Okay. Yeah. I didn't think of that.
Yep. People here at Nerdborne got your back.
uh.
Hells yeah.
So.
But
Mhm.
yeah, there is another area I did want to talk about though, because I like it's there's so many either like obviously Blighttown comes to mind when you talk about challenging areas, but one of the
Mm.
ones the challenging areas that doesn't really get talked about a lot, like you hear about Blighttown, you hear it about like Tomb of the Giants,
Mm.
but for some reason you never really hear much about Sense Fortress, and like fuck
Really?
that place.
Oh yeah.
Like I can't stand Sense Fortress, man. Like it's I just I don't know why it's just like always kicks my ass. Like especially my
It's.
first time, like I came up
Mm.
to it with all these goddamn boulders, bro. Like you think out of like by the second time I got wrecked by a boulder, I'd be like, "Hey, watch out for the boulders." But no, I did
Nope.
not.
Uh. Anytime I'm or anytime I'm in Sen's Fun or Fortress, or I do this every time I die in Sen's Fortress, so I do this a lot. I'll get killed by something and I'll be like, it's Sen's Funhouse. Sen's Fortress just sucks, dude. Like, it,
Uh,
and here's the thing though, like Blighttown is miserable. It is, goddamn awful. Sen's Fortress is Blighttown, but not as terrible because that's it. It's a very vertical base level. There's lots of, narrow pathways you need to try and get past. There's a whole lot of traps, stuff like that. But it doesn't feel as much of a miserable slog like Blighttown does.
uh,
It just feels, it feels like a grind. Like, you are genuinely just fucking gritting your teeth and you're getting through this shit. And that's Dark Souls at its best, actually, for me.
yeah, and those snake enemies could be a pain in the ass unless
Mm,
like you know how to counter them and shit. Like we haven't talked about parrying yet, but like I
right.
would, it took me like the longest time to get parrying down for some odd reason. Like just the timing on it, like
Mm,
it's just a bitch to get down. Like because you have to stand there and take the damage. If you parry, you miss the timing or whatever.
right.
And like for people that don't know, you can parry the shit out of those snakes. Like
Hmm.
it makes my life so much easier when I run through Sense Fortress after learning to parry. If you don't know how to parry in that game, learn how to parry. Learn
Yeah.
how to do it. You'll be much better at fucking PvE and you'll be much better at PvP. Trust me. Learn how to parry.
Parrying is a very powerful tool.
Oh yes, especially in Dark Souls 1.
Mm,
Especially in Dark Souls 1. Like that's basically the whole combat. Like even when I do PvP, and if anybody doesn't know, it's probably person versus person, but when I do PvP in Dark Souls, like that's basically what everybody's waiting on. They either got the big thing or they either got a big sword like Dragon Tooth or something like that to make you like stagger, or they're sitting there with a shield waiting to parry your ass. Like
mm.
that's me. If you see the person trying to parry your ass, that's usually me. But anyways, I digress. Back to Seven's Fortress. Yeah, so on top of that, like they have like the narrow pathways with the rocks that basically take you out every fucking way you turn, and you
Right.
have to learn to time your run throughs. And like on top of that, you have to fight these fucking snakes in such a narrow ass hallways, man. Like,
Mm.
why are the hallways so damn narrow? And for somebody that usually like goes with a strength build, like I got a big ass sword, I'm trying to swing, but the fucking hitting the goddamn wall and it goes back on me, and then the snake hits me. Like, I think I at least went through one or two controllers playing Sense Fortress. And like it's it was so I thought like at the same time in its defense, like I also think it was like really well put together. Like how like the swinging axes go. They
Mm,
again and like this game is gonna teach you patience. It's gonna be like, hey, you're not gonna run through this shit. Like it just
mm.
like take it step by step. You know what I mean?
And I guess a little bit of or Sen's Fortress, just to step back a bit. Dark Souls has a lot of environmental storytelling, but I think the first or most people's first exposure to it is that which lies in the basement of Sen's Fortress, and I speak, of course, of the first mimic most people will encounter in the game.
Oh yeah, get fucking wrecked.
Excuse me. And
Uh,
like the mimic is actually kind of it's an interesting kind of case study because like at that point, if you've been playing Dark Souls and if you've kept it online, which is kind of the default mode for Dark Souls, you've
yeah.
seen the blood stains, you've seen how people died, you've seen messages from people and stuff like that. When you first enter that room, there are a ton of blood stains, but they are mostly centered right around that chest. And it's one of those things where you see that and you're just kind of like, I don't know about this shit. And if you're cautious and you approach the chest carefully, you will at some point, see it open up and breathe a little bit, or you'll look at it long enough to realize, wait, something's not quite right with this.
It looks
Um,
different.
Yeah, like the first time I saw that chest, I thought, okay, maybe there's a trap. Maybe, something's going to come down and crush me when I open up the chest. I didn't realize that the chest itself was the fucking trap.
Dude, there's a fucking wonderful meme out there that perfectly describes this moment. It's like a meme, like
Mm.
normal video games. It's like, oh yay, another chest. Like, let me see that. Like, oh yeah, I got a new weapon. Dark Souls. Rah, 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 rah. You become lunch, bitch.
Mm.
Like, oh man, I remember I was doing a run through. I think about me and my brother were playing Dark Souls 3, and like when we got to the first chest, I knew it was a mimic, obviously. Like,
Mm.
but like I didn't say shit. I'm just like sitting there patiently waiting. I'm like, open the chest, Nick.
Go for it.
Go on, open it. He gets fucking eaten. The only thing I hear through the microphone is "What the fuck." I'm like, welcome to Dark Souls.
Mm.
Even to this day, dude, because of that, every single chest I basically, unless I like what, like say like I'm doing something in like Dark Souls 3, and like I'm doing one of the side areas I'm not too familiar with, I'm like, is
Mm.
that a mimic? I don't. Oh, I'm gonna hit it. Like, let's just be safe and hit this damn thing just to be sure. Okay, it's not a mimic. I'll open it.
Yeah, like I know basically, or Dark Souls 3 is my favorite, and so I know where all the mimics are and stuff like that. But I would be lying if, in the heat of the moment, I'm running through and I see a chest, I might know, or in the back of my mind, oh, this one's safe, but I'm still walking up to that fucker and clink. Okay, we're good.
Yeah. That's also at the end of Sim's Fortress, right before you fight the Iron Golem. That's like one of the highly like invasion areas, man. That's like one of my
Mm.
areas that I like to invade people because it really pisses them off.
Mm.
I just get like it's so fucking awesome when you just get messages like, "Why you gotta be such a piece of shit, bro?" Should I say, "Hey, man, shouldn't be carrying around that many souls"? I don't know what you want me to tell you.
You knew you were playing with fire. If you get to Sen's Fortress, unless you're a speedrunner, you've been dealing with Dark Souls for a bit at this point. You should know better.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. Like, I'll
Hmm.
carry around a shitload of souls all the time, and I don't know. I kind of get like an adrenaline rush, I guess, from it. Like, hey, I
Mm.
got like 200,000 souls. I should probably level up. Like, nah, I could clear this area. And then you die, and you're like, oh man, like,
Fuck.
and like now as an experienced Souls player, I know just run through. Pick
Yeah.
up your souls, they get to a safe area, and go from there. But like back then, like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna clear out the entire thing.
Hmm.
You know.
But to change it up a little bit, because let's face it, we've kind of been sucking Dark Souls' cock for a little bit. There is an area that is a definite a black mark on the game on the whole, and I speak, of course, of Lost Izalith.
Ah, yes.
Now, something some people may not know is that Lost Izalith is actually not a complete area, and that's kind of why it's one of the shittier areas of the game in general, is because that's it. They were running out of time. They needed to get shit done, and Lost Izalith was the thing that was, on the back end of the production cycle. That's why there's a lot of reused enemies. That's why there's like, that section where it's literally just a lake of lava with a bunch of dinosaur butts littered around. Like, uh, it doesn't take a lot to realize that Lost Izalith did not get the same level of care or attention to detail that the rest of the game got. And you can blame production on stuff like that, or you can blame that on production cycles. You can blame that on uh, developers not spending enough time or not being able to. Uh, that's it. There's a lot of things that you can try and attribute it to, but the simple
Uh-huh.
fact of the matter is that Lost Izalith is not a good area.
That's funny that you bring it up because I did not know that. I did
Really.
not know that it was. Yeah, I didn't know that they got rushed and everything like that. But like, that makes sense because it does feel like an incomplete area.
Mm.
Like, I swear to God, I genuinely thought like, hey, they were like, hey, we're just gonna make this area short to try to give you like just feed you a bone.
Mm.
Like, I thought it was like it's one of the easiest areas in the entire game,
Yeah.
even though it's towards the end of the game that usually it depends on how you do your playthroughs, but
Mm.
usually it's at towards the end of the game. But it's like one of the easy areas of the game. It's got one of the easiest bosses and so on and so forth. But I thought they were just pretty much like, here's a bone. Like, I know that like we made this game difficult, but we're just give you a little present here and make this an easier area. Guess I was wrong.
Mm,
But
mm,
like
mm.
I like even like the only thing that I would say that is difficult about it is the Bed of Chaos boss fight. Right?
Oh,
And I didn't now it's not difficult now because you know what to do. But come
mm.
on, you didn't know what to do the first time.
No, nobody did, of course. But it's
Yeah.
funny that you mentioned the Bed of Chaos because that is a boss that is so shitty that they actually let you save your progress when you die.
Yeah. I
Like,
never noticed that before, but that is true.
they did such a bad job with Bed of Chaos in terms of boss design that the only way they could make it not so shitty is to allow you to, not have to literally restart every other time. It is the only boss in the game. I think it's the only boss in Dark Souls or Bloodborne in general where um, progress in between attempts actually carries over.
Yeah, that is true. Like I said, I thought they were just kind of feeding you the bone.
Mm,
They're like, "Hey, man, this game's been really hard. We're just gonna make life a little bit easier for you. Let you have a level that like let you breathe some air. Because let's face it, each and every Dark Soulsborne game has basically got that one area that's not that
mm,
difficult. It's
yeah.
usually towards like the end of the game. Like each one of them's got it. I mean, take another drink for future podcast episode, I suppose. But
Mm,
um, I didn't know that they got rushed. Like that's something new for that I just learned about it. Like that's pretty like that explains a lot about it. That's probably the reason why it feels like really incomplete.
mm,
You know what I mean? Um I don't like my personally like it's towards the end. I know you don't like depends on how you do your playthroughs and which
mm,
levels you do first or whatever. I mean really technically there's so like a lot of these places that we just talked about like you really don't even have to do them. Like there's ways to skip like so many levels in the game.
right.
But you have to do the Beds of Chaos, don't you?
Yeah, it's one of the four Lord Souls.
Yeah, that's what I thought so. Yeah, so you definitely have to do the Beds of Chaos, but I think you anytime after you do the Blight Town, you could be doing, can't you?
Uh, Anytime after you go through Anne Orlando, actually.
Okay, yeah, I know Larno, thank you for correcting me. But yeah, I usually save it towards the end of the game. I don't know why. I just like generally my habit. Like I don't
Mm,
usually run towards it. I usually by the time I'm done with and Orlando and all that kinds of that's usually by the time I usually go to say like the catacombs and the Tomb of the Giants. Which
right.
how much fun did you have at Tomb of the Giants when you first played through?
Oh.
Like and for anybody out there that has trouble with Tomb of the Giants, like there's two things that can help you. A, there's a spell that can cast light so you can fucking see. Or B, there's a helmet that you could equip. I'm not too sure the name of the helmet off the top of my head, but there's a helmet that you could equip that you can help you see too. Like, make sure you
Mm,
Google that. Try to give you help, but it's like one of the most famous gifts. Gifts. How do you say that word? You know what I'm
GIF.
talking about? Yeah, GIF. I said it right the first time.
Mm,
It's one of the most famous gifts out there of the Dark Souls, is where the dude's like walking with a torch and he's walking down the dark little fucking pathway and he sees a giant ass skeleton. And he just turns around. He's like, "Nope."
nope, 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 nope.
Yeah, no. That's just the Nope area and Nope land, and we're just gonna do Nope around it.
Yeah. Um, since we're on the topic of Tomb of the Giants, that's another one that's really just kind of it's like Sen's Fortress in the sense that it's sort of like Blight Town, but it's not nearly as miserable. Like, don't get me wrong, the whole, it's dark and you can't see and it's hard to get around. That's certainly an aspect of it, but it's not as bad as Blight Town just because there's not nearly as much misery, I guess. Like, you're just dealing with enemies, you're just dealing with giant skeletons. But if you have the skull lantern, or the helmet that whatever it is, I don't know what it is offhand. um
Yeah,
this, if you have a source of light, it makes it a lot easier. But there's
so
also,
much easier.
like, most people, the way they're going to get through the Tomb of the Giants is that they're going to use the skull lantern because it's the only item that you've had to this point that actually functions like a lantern or a torch or something like that. So it
Uh-huh.
deprives you the use of your shield, and that makes for an interesting and also kind of a bad thing when it comes to Dark Souls, because Dark Souls in general is built around using your shield. And this is something that I wanted to actually get into a little bit with the tutorial section, is that Dark Souls does, and this is a term coined by uh, H Bomber Guy, which is another YouTuber, great content, check him out.
Hmm.
No affiliation or anything like that. But he came up with the idea of play conditioning. And what I mean by that is that the first thing Dark Souls tells you is to get a shield and hide behind that fucker. All right? The shield is safety. Like if you ever watch like first time let's plays of Dark Souls, somebody it's their first exposure to the game, at some point you will notice that every time that they don't feel completely safe, or that they think that the game is about to spring some bullshit on them, they'll have their shield up.
Yeah.
And I was guilty of this too. There was a time where I would just hold down, the L1 or the left trigger or the left bumper, and that was how I walked around through the game.
Yeah, me
Excuse
too.
me.
Me too at first.
hmm Now, basically the only use I have for a shield is if it's the grass crest shield, but I digress. Um,
Or parry.
Oh yeah, or a parry shield. But the game or the Undead Asylum conditions you for the rest of the game. Use your shield, hide behind your shield, and then Tomb of the Giants takes that away from you, and that I think makes the area so much harder in comparison to say Sen's Fortress or Blighttown. Is because that's it. Your
Mhm.
first instinct is going to be, I need to see. Let me hold up this lantern. Oh fuck, there's a giant skeleton there, and
Yeah.
now I just have to try and roly poly my shit through this.
Nope. Especially like if you're doing like a hybrid build and you're doing like pyromancy and like dexterity, or if you're doing if you had spells that you're using on your left hand, you know what I mean? Now
Hmm.
you can't do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
You just basically got your sword and you got your torch. That's basically it. That's a really an intelligent thing to point out too, is because that's one of the things that made it difficult for me too. Obviously,
Hmm.
like what we said that me and you were just guilty of hiding behind the shield. But by the time you get to there, they're like, "Hey, no more shield," and on top of that, you can't see. Good luck.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's big skeletons that just want to devour you too, so be careful of that.
Nice little pat on the ass.
Yeah. Then by the time you get to the end of it, you got to fight Nito's ugly ass.
Oh god, I hate Nito.
Dude, I don't know why, but I
Hmm.
love that fight. Like I
Really.
don't, yeah, dude. I was actually shocked when I first got into like the Dark Souls community on social
Hmm.
media, and people were all bitching about Nito. I'm like, really?
Hmm.
I was like, oh, yeah, he's like one of my favorite bosses to fight. Him and Quayle.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I never had that difficult of a time with them. In fact, that's one of my farming areas for back when Remaster first came out and it was on a
Hmm.
poppin', and like everybody needed help with Nito, dude. I used to put my sign down and get so much souls. I loved it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's it's funny you mentioned that because I don't think Quelaag is actually all that bad, but she's
Me
one
neither.
of those that really seem to torture players. But that's it. I didn't really think Quelaag was that too bad. But before we get into bosses and whatnot, uh, tell me, do you think there are any areas in Dark Souls that are like underappreciated or not talked about enough? Well, yeah.
I do have a specific area that's like one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily it's called you get to the area through the Dark Root Basin. All right, it's not actually the Dark Root Basin that I'm talking about, but you
Mm-hmm.
once I don't know if anybody knows this, but that big door there, you can get something called a Crest Oratorius. Have I
Oh,
said
right.
that right? Did I
Crest
say
of
that right?
Artorias, and that's
Fucking A,
actually
I got it right that
mandatory.
time. Yeah. Oh, is it? Oh, yeah, because you got to go fight Sif. I forgot about that. Yeah,
Right.
but that's like the best farming area in probably the entire game, and you can get it relatively early. Now I know early on when you get to that, it's like the second level you basically go to. So
Mm-hmm.
getting like 20,000 souls is kind of a bitch, but it's so worth it. Like you can get those souls back within like 5 minutes, not I mean,
Right.
maybe 10 minutes, but whatever. I might be over exaggerating a little bit, but like because of that area, like they have like the Phantom guys in there.
Mm,
And you can farm this shit out of them. And if you
right.
don't feel like going PvP, like, you know what I mean? Like, but you can
Mm,
farm the hell out of them. You can get people to come there. You can basically like get like 2 other friends with you in that area and sit there and just get invaded over and over and get 5 to 10,000 souls per like the invasion, or it depends on how
mm.
many people are invading you. But if you got the fingers, you can get 2 people in invasion. I think you get like 5,000 per doing it. Like I farm in that area in the beginning of the game, and like I probably get upwards to like 2 to 300,000 souls, even when the game is dead, just from farming in that. Yeah, just for farming in that area. And like if
Mm,
you feel ballsy, you can go fight Sif, and like somebody like me that's like used to Sif and like
mm,
his like movement, like I could beat him early. Like I'm not really concerned about it. Like the Sif is not that hard of a boss, but I digress into the bosses. But that's the reason why that area is like my favorite. One of the I think it's one of the most underappreciated ones, is because not only is it the mecca of the invasions in the entire game, but it's one of the best farming places in the entire game as well.
mm.
And I don't think it like usually when they get like when we talk about this game, or anybody talks about this game, you hear about Blighttown and like
Right.
Tony the Giants. You don't really hear about this area too often. Like, and it surprises me because like when they came out were remastered, that was like the area was just utterly insane. Like I got to the point where I had started going in there hollowed because I was like, I don't want to, like I can't do anything, man. I was literally getting invaded every 2 seconds. It was insane. Like then I got to the full point where I was that person doing the evasions, or I would like use the dried fingers. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Just so you can summon 3 people and then have 2 people invade you. I had a good old time doing PvP on that.
mm.
It actually kind of made me sad because I started playing Dark Souls recently on the PC, and the area is just so dead. Like I couldn't find anybody in to invade, and I couldn't get invaded. I just like had to farm the Phantom guys or whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah, so it kind of made me like one of those like tear roll down the cheek sad moments. Like, oh, my favorite game is dead.
Womp womp
Yeah, basically, yeah.
womp.
I don't even like the dark group basin. I just like that area. Like that's also another reasons why I like the area. Just in case anybody does that play this game
Mm,
and they have a trouble getting down like parrying, that's the perfect area to get down parrying. Those guys are the perfect opponents to do it because you got a bonfire right there. So you don't really have to worry about losing souls, and like they have 3 different guys that keep respawning, and they have 3 different move sets. So it's like
mm,
the perfect place to practice your parrying.
mhm,
You got one guy that uses a small quick dagger to help you get the quick ones down. You
mm,
got a cleric that uses a mace to kill. It's kind of in between like the quick and like slow. And then you got a slow guy there that's using a big like a big axe, two-handed axe. Like so, it's like a really great area to get down that pairing. That's one of the reasons why I loved it so much, because I was having trouble getting down the pairing until I realized, hey, I could practice in here and like not have to worry about losing fucking 20,000 souls or whatever.
ah,
Yeah. So like just a little what you call it advice out there for people that are having trouble with the pairing. That's a perfect place to get that down.
mm.
But yeah, that's for some reason I don't think like nobody ever talks about that area. Like I don't know, at least I never hear it. Like
Mm.
anytime I'm on like YouTube watching my Dark Souls like videos and stuff like that, I never hear anybody talk about that.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, that honestly wouldn't have been my pick for an area, but hey, that's why we're doing this podcast, Different strokes, different folks.
That sounded like judgment to me. Don't you judge me, motherfucker.
I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that was an interesting choice. Come on, I
I'll
was.
just,
It was unexpected. That's basically a compliment coming from me.
uh, you give those?
Hmm.
You
On
give those
occasion.
compliments. I'm just fucking with you. So what about you, man? What's an underrated area that you feel like that doesn't get enough attention?
Okay, it's semi underrated, but the reason I like, or nobody really talks about it because there isn't a whole lot there. Um, but it's one of those areas that really I think kind of encapsulates Dark Souls, and it's kind of two areas, but they're linked right together. And that is the Great Hollow and Ash Lake.
Ah,
And the reason I pick or I say those is because one, there's very little benefit actually to going through them other than, just in general killing things to get souls, finding, treasures littered about, so on and so forth. But the reason I say they're underappreciated is because they're entirely missable. Like you don't have to go there at all. You don't have to even tangentially go through there. They're not required for the main plot. But it's almost like, like a to me, it's almost kind of like a bonus level or a secret level. And that's another thing that's really kind of faded from video games in general.
Hmm.
But future podcast episode, take a drink.
Uh,
Um, just the fact that your only reward really for going through there is just more exploration, and the only way you're going to find it is by exploring and chewing through the entire game and going through every area and stuff like that. Like, it's one of those areas, it's completely optional, it's incredibly easy to miss, but when you find it, or like, I guess, to explain how you find it, it's by um, by a bonfire in Blighttown, and or rather, at the bottom of Blighttown. It's like at the very back end of the area. You go up this tree
oh,
route, and then there's a chest in there, and if you hit it, or there's a chest in there, if you hit the wall behind it, the wall is fake. You go in, there's another chest behind the fake wall, but then you hit another fake wall, and that leads to the Great Hollow. And it's really just one of those situations where you are rewarded for trying a little bit of everything.
yeah, I actually found that area in my first playthrough, and the reason why is because I've been an RPG player my entire life, so I like check everything.
Mm,
I've always been like that, and like Dark Souls is very rewarding for you checking everything. Now, on top of that, I think that my first playthrough in Dark Souls, I think I got lucky and somebody put down messages. Usually in Dark
right.
Souls, if there's a illusionary wall there, somebody put down messages. If there's not an illusionary wall there, somebody put down messages.
Mm,
Like people are jackasses sometimes, but yeah, I
y-
think my first playthrough, somebody put down the messages, so I got it. But that's a
mm,
very good point. That it's not like it's not mandatory to do, but if you do explore and you do get into there, it can be very rewarding. If I remember correctly, you get a bunch of Titanite chunks
yeah.
going through there, and you get the Calanthy ring through that.
Chloranthy ring.
Yeah, you get that through that area, right?
You get it leading into that area, if I recall.
Oh, okay, all right.
Like, you go up the tree route, you open the chest, there's something in there, and then you go through and you hit the second chest, and then that's where the Chloranthy ring is. If I well, here, let's make sure we're not frauds.
I already did it. Yeah, we're right. But yep,
uh,
you are right there, sir. Yep, that is where you get it.
okay.
Yep. But yeah, they like it's also like a very rewarding if you do find it because you do get a bunch of chunks like pretty much right when you need them.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Um, I remember when I was running through it, man, and I got into like by the time I got to Ash Lake, I was like,
oh
I don't know if I'm supposed to be going this way.
yeah.
Like this looks like very ominous. I don't know if I should head out there.
And that's another thing too. It's a very kind of spooky area, and it's one of the few areas in Dark Souls that's, really wide open and very spacious, and or well, the Great Hollow isn't, but go or once you get into Ash Length, there's this giant area and there's kind of nothing around, which in and of itself is a little bit scary.
Uh-huh.
And that's it, just going through the area itself is actually, I think, pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that that's how you ended up getting in one of the covenants too, because
Yeah,
that's
the
what.
everlasting dragon.
Yeah, that was one of the covenants I had to like enter, and I think I ended up doing it early on one of my run throughs.
Hmm.
But yeah, that even they like go, what the hell is that? Like the Hydra? What the hell is that big ass monster that pops up? Like fuck
Yeah,
that.
it's a hydra.
Yeah, that thing. I hate that damn thing. It wrecked me the first time I got encountered it until I got used to it. But
Right.
because it's so far out there and shit, man. I was like, I don't like kill this thing. It's hitting me from so far away.
The
Oh,
hydras too are just kind of annoying. Like, you only fight a couple of them going through Dark Souls, but it's just such a pain in the ass. And let's face it, water is not fun when it comes to Dark Souls.
Yeah, for some, that's like one of the negative things I do have to say about it is like this like this Hollow person like basically like is fighting gods
Yeah.
practically, but he can't swim. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you got a bunch of like heavy armor on, I can understand that, but you'd be butt ass naked and he still can't swim, dude. He can't doggy paddle. You telling me the chosen one can't doggy paddle?
Well, I mean, let's face it. If you're undead, that means you're, a walking corpse, and corpses sink, not swim.
Yeah, that is pretty. Hey, they don't like they float.
Mm,
Corpses
mm.
can float.
Well, after a certain stage, I would say because that's it. They just sink. I don't know. I don't know the mechanics of corpses floating.
Yeah, me neither, to be honest with you. I think once their like body gets filled with water, I do think they sink. I
Mm.
don't know. That's not going to be. Do not take a drink because that will not be a future podcast.
No, we are not talking about. That's not gonna. We're not gonna. No.
For real, dude. Well, I thought that's an interesting choice of area too, man,
Mm.
because it's like how you said it earlier. That's like one. It's really easy to miss. Like
Right.
I could completely understand if somebody like beat that game 2 or 3 times, but never went to Ash Lake or never went through there. Sorry, what is it? The Great Hollow or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Like somebody like I could completely under. It's like really easy to miss. Like I said, I found it just because I'm like I explore a lot, and on top of that, like I just got lucky with the messages.
Mm.
Oh.
Yeah. That's. I don't know. It's probably one of those things I got lucky with the messages, or it honestly could have been, I saw this chest sitting there, and at that point, I knew about mimics, so I was just sort of like, okay, let me check this fucker out. And then like whenever I know I have to deal with a mimic, I actually get behind it and hit it, just so that way when it's starting to pop up, I don't have to worry about it, going nom nom delicious
Mhm.
hollow. uh so maybe I clinked off the chest, and that actually hit the wall behind me, or however, but that's it. The reason I picked it is because that's it. It feels very secret level to me, very bonus area, and it's really kind of the last instance of that in a game that I can think of that didn't get, like, that's it. The only way you're going to discover it is through discovery, or through exploration, instead of the game kind of going, hey, there's a something over here, wink wink, nudge nudge, elbow in the stomach.
Yeah, they give you very subtle hints.
Mm,
Like this, you can take a drink now, motherfuckers.
mm,
Future podcast, but obviously we're going to talk about the story too. We're just not didn't dive into it yet, but like that's one of the things you have to do is like you have to read like the items and stuff like that, just like to fully understand like, the lore.
yeah.
And on top of that, not only the lore, but you have to fully read them to understand where you have to fucking go sometimes.
Yeah, item descriptions are really important, which hey, future podcast episode, take a drink.
You guys are gonna die of alcohol poisoning by the time we're done here. But
Please don't drink.
what's one final area if you had to talk about that you would talk about?
uh I would say definitely we are there's not a lot whole there, I think, but definitely killing of the first flame.
Hmm.
Like,
I think that's a great thing. Definitely, I mean, if you're going to be talking about like how we've been pretty much talking about this and everything in order,
mm,
I mean, that seems like the obvious leave off.
mm, hey, it's almost like that was planned. Cough, cough. But
we
like,
we like to think here.
hey, man, it's called Nerdborne. We're nerds. Nerds, we
Yeah,
think.
yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. But killing of the first flame, like, there isn't a whole lot going on in the area. It's honestly not a difficult area, and like, even kind of storyline wise, it's a little bit weak, but it's an interesting area, I think, because it brings things full circle, because like we said earlier, you get the opening cutscene of this is establishing of the world, and then you actually
Hmm.
get to go to that area where you saw the first flame, you saw the the first humans rise up and stuff like that, and Gwyn is standing there at the end,
Yeah. And
and
they
hmm,
go ahead.
just that's it. The whole bringing things full circle, kind of returning to where everything began. I think that's uh, a very obvious narrative choice, but it's also a good one in this case because the whole time throughout the stories of Dark Souls, take a drink, future podcast episode. But uh, you hear about the first flame, how the fire is important, all of these little lore tidbits, and then you are actually going kind of to the place where everything began.
Hmm. Yeah, and unless you're actually paying attention, you probably don't even notice that.
Yeah.
like like if say if this is your first playthrough of Dark Souls and you started off and you get that like that cutscene or little like show there, and like dude, that like it's really good. It like sinks you into it. But like you go through so much shit in Dark Souls, by the time you get to the end, you're like, what happened now? What the hell's going on? Like only thing I know is I got butt raped by Blade Town and since
Yeah.
like I finally reached the end. Like I don't care about the story. I just want to kill this motherfucker and be done with this. And like Gwen I didn't even know this like the first time I played it, but it gives you like optional endings and everything. I
Mm,
don't know if like I of course did every single ending because I had to because I was like obsessed about 100%ing this fucking game.
right.
But like each ending is like unique in its own way. Like it really does like you can like link the flame and like restart the cycle, or you could just walk away and just say fuck all the cycle, like fuck society and the system, like
Mm,
like gives you its own little narrative of what you want to do with it. I always liked that. I always thought that it was pretty cool. It gave you like the opportunity to create whatever ending that you want, but you really don't even know what that you're doing. You're just like really giving you the choice. I should just say.
mm,
You know what I mean? Like and like you said, it's not like a big area and it's not hard, especially like once you're master pairing. Those knights are really easy to take
yeah.
down. Like I wrecked them, but I did so much farming and everything. Like I wrecked those knights when I finally got to that area.
And to, I guess, actually kind of bring things full circle in this episode, um, one, the Black Knights are kind of just training for Gwyn because you can parry Gwyn, and if you can do that, Gwyn is actually a very easy fight. Um,
Mhm.
but also, uh, not only with that whole training aspect, I kind of actually see the killing of the first flame as kind of like a victory lap for the player because let's face it, it's not a very difficult area, and
No.
Gwyn is hard, but certainly there have been harder bosses up to that point. Koff, Ornstein, and Smo Koff.
Yeah.
Um, but it's almost kind of like a victory lap in a way because if you can almost mow through the area. Like I said, the black or all the black knights, you can just parry them for days. The area itself, there's not a whole lot of tricks or anything. It's almost that's it. It's like a victory lap or a cooldown lap or whatever you want to call it. And I
Yeah.
really kind of think the killing of the first flame celebrates the player. Like it's not throwing all these difficult challenges at you, but it's kind of just sort of this capstone of all the things the game has taught you, all the things that you've had to learn to make it through Dark Souls, and then your reward for that kind of mastery is an awesome boss, which is Gwyn.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
I'll give Gwen that one. I've never personally like been a big Gwen fan, even though I love the sun. So praise the sun. I'm gonna say
Oh yeah.
that. But Gwen does look cool as hell.
Mm.
By the time you fight him, like he does, like he's got like a fire sword and like his combination. Like he definitely is cool. One of the coolest looking bosses.
And also
So
just sort of the presentation of Gwyn, because that's it. He's just standing there still, tending the fire, and
yeah,
like time is kind of shifty in Dark Souls, but you still get the impression that he has been here for uh, eons, just a crazy amount of time, and then it's really kind of sad in its own way, and that's more environmental storytelling. But yeah, like that's the killing of the first flame for me is that's it. It's really just kind of a victory lap for Dark Souls, and I felt it was worth talking about from that kind of narrative perspective that, okay, this is an area that shows the player, look at how much you've triumphed, look at how much you've overcome, that you can just waltz through this area.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. That it is kind of like a victory lap for a player, especially after you go through the meat grinder that is Dark Souls.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like there's so many hard areas, and by the time you get to the end of it, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna give you a bone here. We're not so
Mhm.
like we know we gave you a hard time. Here's a little short area before you get to the final boss." Like,
Yeah.
the only thing that could have made it better is at the sides of the edges, they just had like audience clapping for you. Congratulations, you did it.
You did it. Dun,
Right?
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that's the only thing that could have made it better for me. Like if they had just had that. But beyond that, that's a good way of putting it out. That it's like a victory lap for the player. Like, hey man, you went through hell to get here. You got Black Knights, but they're easy. We're gonna put. I like how they put them there too. It's almost like, hey, they're sitting there guarding their boss, like you know what I mean,
Mm.
guarding their leader the entire time. You know, like, and that is true about Gwen. I kind of did feel like they have a little bit of sympathy for him that he'd been sitting there for so long, but at the same time, you put him out of his misery.
Speaking of putting things out of its misery, well, granted, I wouldn't say this has been misery. Me and Andrew have really enjoyed doing this podcast, and I guess kind of a little peek of the future. Uh, we are going to go in on Dark Souls. This is probably going to be, a multi-part series, and we hope you all stay tuned for that. Uh, we're nerding out. This is what we made, or why we decided to do Nerdborne, is because that's it. We just wanted to pick some of our favorite things and fucking nerd out about them. So here we are. But I'd like to
Mhm.
thank you all very much for listening. If you've made it this far, please like and subscribe to the video. Leave a comment in the comment section. If you got a game that you'd like to talk about, or if we got something wrong, or if you'd like to just add something to the discussion. We're always looking for new and interesting takes on our favorite stuff, because that's kind of the best part of anything, is discovering something new about it. But again, thank you guys very much for listening. We hope you're all staying safe out there, especially because the world is getting pretty crazy. But Andrew, got any final notes?
Um, just make sure that you like and subscribe, and like leave us any kind of like comments. Like we love to interact.
Mm.
And thank you for listening to me talk about Dark Souls. I never thought I'd be able to talk about Dark Souls so much. So I thoroughly enjoyed this episode.
Definitely, definitely. But
So.
I guess I'll leave you guys with the same message